Tonight's presentation will address the state requirements for rental housing and how the city of Phoenix is responding. At the end of the presentation, we will hold comments and questions to the end. If you have a question or would like to make a comment, please fill out a speaker card and provide to staff around the room. Recognize staff. Raise your hand just to identify who you are. So read those folks that you see. You can hand them a card and we'll collect that and we'll go over the questions and comments at the end of the presentation. We have several staff here from the city of Phoenix to answer those various questions you may have. My name is Tricia Jones, I'm the Deputy Director of the Planning and Development Department. To my left is Christopher Carroll, the Chief Leader for Tax Amendments. Kevin Wade is the Historic Preservation Office. Josh Bednar is our Planning and Development Director. Al Stevenson will be here from the Manager's Office. And before we get started, I'm going to turn it over to Council.
Good evening. How are you? I hope a little bit of a smile. What I have to say is I have heard from many. I know of the situation. I have been in this situation since 2024. 2024 was a year of multiple zoning bills that the city opposed. There's multiple zoning bills that the legislature always does, and we come up and we say we're opposing. 2024 was the middle housing bill. We opposed that. I was deep in the trenches with our government relations office in opposing. We opposed all the way through. Once we saw that the bill was passing, we started saying we need some protection for HP because I was opposing to say, please keep historic districts out of this, exempt them. What we got in all of it was we could still have HP design, we could still have our demolition timeline. What they didn't want to hear and refused to hear was about exempting HP. I talked to several legislators that were moving it. We had not only our government relations, we also had other consultants or lobbyists helping us with the Republican and the Democratic side. What ended up happening is middle housing passed. Then Aaron Marcus, could you please stand, came into office. Aaron is a legislator of your area, came into office and we said, Aaron, please champion a bill to exempt HP from middle housing. He didn't. What happened is that they chose not to give it a hearing and it died. So here we are today. We will end up passing, we will follow the law and end up passing something, as you're seeing what's coming out. We are fast and furious working with an outside lawyer to see if there's what we can do, how we can do it. Can we do the bare minimum? What I can say is all this organization that is happening needs to happen and needs to happen today with the legislators that are starting to write new bills. They're writing new zoning bills. We've asked Aaron once again to run a bill. We're hoping that we get another sponsor in another city that has historic preservation, hopefully on the Republican side, to help us get this bill over. What I need you guys to do is start now writing your legislatures, not only writing your current legislature, but writing outside of our district. Our rural community has they have a vote too. Our rural community can collaborate together and shut a lot of things down for us. So we have to make friends with everybody at this moment. I can tell you that the short-term rental group that we were talking with last week at League of Cities is willing to join the fight, is willing to come in and collaborate and join the fight and help. We are working with many other entities to try to get them organized and get together and do the fight. Many people have said I didn't do anything. Some people have said, where have I been? I've been in the forefront in fighting. If anybody knows me, everybody knows that I will fight for our neighborhoods, and I will always fight for the historic district. I am now in this space and time, and as you can see, I will continue to fight as we organize more people. Willow, I get questioned. Here, I'm going to tell you quite frank what I got told. Willow is just whiny. Willow is of, what was the term they used? No, they didn't use NIMBYs, because I said I don't listen to NIMBYs. Willow is fighting for themselves. That's the only historic district that has closed fences, gets everything they want. That's fair. You know what? What I have to say is Willow is the one that has the power to organize, and Willow is fighting for the historic district. And this isn't about Willow. This is about the historic districts that people have moved into during a time where they would not have moved into a historic district. If anybody knows history, and people know history of Arizona, I'm a native, know history, what those neighborhoods looked like in the past and where they are today. And the sacrifices that many of you have made in order to keep them where they are today, and the value that they are today. So you have every right to fight for your neighborhood. But not only do you have every right to fight for your neighborhood, you're fighting for every other historic neighborhood. What you also hear is there are other historic neighborhoods that have duplexes. Well, Willow has duplexes, I know that. I see that. There's one on 7th Avenue, south of or north of McDowell. Tom Simplot used to own that, your former councilman. So I know that it's possible. What they will say is, well, look at Pearson, look at Coronado, look at Garfield, look at Roosevelt. Well, my response to that was, yeah, look at that. But when those were built at that time, that's when the zoning was happening. Now they're historic. So we need to preserve that. I am on the fight to preserve the inner core of the historic. If you really look at it, it's the outer historic neighborhoods on the periphery that have the ability, or right now have the zoning for duplexes, condos, and even apartments. Well, it's working there, that's great. But our core is not that. We need to preserve the core. And if the out perimeter is working, that is great. It's a perimeter. It's happened and it's been happening. So I'm here to say I have been here, I have watched, I have heard, I am in the trenches, and I am pushing as much as I can. So I have asked staff to give this presentation as they were going to roll this out. But I've also asked staff, let's figure a way. So that's why we're getting our outside consultant, our lawyer, coming in to help us with the law, where there any type of loopholes or anything like that. I have several council people that are going to stand strong with me, but I suggest you start writing them. I have some that do not have any historic districts that say, why should I care? It is the law, let it happen, what's the issue? So my suggestion is that you write those council people and say, we need to keep ourselves preserved, we need to preserve history. It's not that we don't want it, it is within our neighborhood, but we do not want someone to come in and assemble homes, knock them down,
down, destroy them, destroy the history, and then have townhomes. Some say, Laura, this is a fear factor that your neighborhoods are doing. I said, no, it's not a fear factor, it's reality. It may not happen today, but what I do today and what we do today preserves the future. And what we are fighting for is really our future. It's the future that we're fighting for to preserve. It may not happen in 5 years, it may not happen in 10 years, but all of a sudden something happens with our economy, something, who knows what. That law's in place, then it goes into play. So, I want to thank you again for being here. I want to thank you for advocating. If you need some suggestions on a letter, if you need some help in getting to, for maybe we have a group that identifies who we need to, different sections of Willow or historic neighborhoods to target different legislator, let's do that. My other point is, you need to hold those that created this bill accountable. You need to also hold those, it's not just the core of who voted, but it's a whole other group to say, this is what it's doing. Ma'am, I know you've been patiently raising your hand. I'll answer one question and then I gotta go take my daughter to softball. I've been on it since 2024 when I heard about it. I'm sorry you didn't hear about it. I know people in Willow I've spoken to, we were in the middle of the fight. I'm sorry. The board, several board members knew about it. I agree that you should be angry because you didn't know about it. I agree, if you want to be angry at me, that's okay. But I would move that anger to action, and that is writing your legislature and making it happen. The other piece is, I would be, as I am leaving term, I would look at your candidates. And I would look at your candidates and see what they support and what they don't support. And see which candidate is lining where, so that you know how to protect your neighborhoods. I am a native of this area. I grew up in Canto Manor, which was not called in Canto Manor way back. Have lived there since I was 13, moved in that neighborhood, so I understand the power and the strength of historic discipline. I understand the power and strength of community. And that's what we do, is we have built community around us. Move your anger to action. That's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Pastor. Just one other item. We do have Phoenix TV channel 11 here filming, so we are live streaming. Anyone, when we get to the questions and answers portion, you will need to speak into the mic so that they can get that recording. I'm going to turn it over, and Christopher is going to walk you through our presentation.
Thank you, Tricia. Again, my name is Christopher DePero, and I work for Planning and Development Department, and I'm going to present for you what the city's response has been to the bill, rather than the law that the legislature enacted in 2024. So I think Councilman Pastor did an excellent job of explaining how we got here, but there's just a little bit of a graphic for you there to explain that this did actually come from the state, and we were directed to do so. Specifically, the legislature said that cities of 75,000 plus in population must authorize by ordinance and incorporate into its development regulations, zoning regulations, and other official controls of the development of duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and townhomes as a permitted use in certain locations and under certain conditions, which I'll further explain. Authorized by ordinance and incorporate into its development regulations, zoning regulations, and other official controls. This is the legislature telling each city and town to enact and enforce regulations. So it wasn't a state law in the sense of they'll do state zoning, it was directing each municipality to enact the law as directed by the state. Now, the development of duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and townhomes is a permitted use. This is generally what is known as middle housing, although frankly, there are other, nationwide middle housing is known in some other forms as well, other than the ones directed by the state. This is a graphic of an example of what might be known as middle housing. It's somewhat more and more limited under the legislature's bill. What you're likely to see in Arizona is more what you see at the bottom of this slide, which is there are two duplexes shown as an example of what you might see, and a fourplex. A triplex would also be allowed. I did not have a graph for that. But what is middle housing exactly in the state of Arizona? The description in the law is middle housing means buildings that are compatible in scale, form, and character with single-family houses, and that contain two or more attached, detached, stacked, or clustered homes, and include duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and townhouses. So in Phoenix specifically, it means that the city must allow up to 4 dwelling units per single-family lot in certain areas of central Phoenix, but also on at least 20% of the lots in a new subdivision of 10 contiguous acres or more citywide. So it isn't solely restricted to the area in central Phoenix. New developments will also have this by right. But it also requires them to be constructed in any attached or detached manner. So when you hear the word duplex or triplex, I know a lot of you picture a single structure, but the definition of the state law says that they can be built in any manner. It's just the number of units on a lot, the way it's written into the law. It did come with some limitations, however. It wasn't just say do that and let us go. It was, they added some restrictions on implementation. So the city cannot set restrictions, permitting, or review processes for middle housing that are more restrictive than those for single-family dwellings in the same zone. What you're going to see from this is that a lot of our response, and when we have the actual change in text out, is that there's going to be a lot of very minor changes, not to entitlements, but in terms of how we look at and review certain types of development. Because right now, that wouldn't be the case in our ordinance, that they are not exactly treated the same. So we've had to do that. One of the other things that the city cannot do, and this is written into the bill, exactly as you see on the screen, city cannot discourage the development of middle housing through requirements or actions that individually or cumulatively make impracticable the permitting, siting, or construction of middle housing. And I think that's the first time I got through that sentence without stumbling on a word. The next thing, city cannot restrict middle housing types to less than 2 floors, and I'm going to address that a little further in this presentation. The city cannot require owner occupancy of any structures on the lot. The city cannot require any structures to contain a fire sprinkler. Now that's something that we've already addressed. There are certain types of residential construction that certain duplexes, triplexes, depending on how you build them and under what code, that would actually require a fire sprinkler. When the city adopted its 2024 building codes just recently, we did work ahead and put an exception in there where it doesn't exempt it, but it does require a stronger type of fire rating in place of a fire sprinkler so that there's higher fire resistance. So we have introduced that already. And the last thing that they told us was that the city cannot require more than 1 off-street parking space per unit. But yet there's more. There is one penalty clause also put in the bill that says exactly this. If a municipality does not adopt the regulations required by this section on or before January 1st, 2026, middle housing shall be allowed on all lots in the municipality zoned for single-family residential use without any limitations. Without any limitations is not further defined. It could mean no zoning controls whatsoever, no restrictions on height, setbacks, lot coverage, parking placement, or design. So they made it very clear that they want us to have this adopted. So how is Phoenix responding? Well, the basics are on this slide. There are two things going on with this effort. The text amendment, which actually changes the regulations in the zoning ordinance itself to allow middle housing as required by the state, and it creates that by creating a middle housing overlay district that we would put on top of existing zoning where it's required, and that will give the permissions required. However, there's also a rezoning case that will apply the middle housing overlay to areas of Phoenix surrounding downtown as required by the state. And that's the area around Central Phoenix that I referred to, which you will see in this map. Now, I know it may be a little bit hard to see on here. It is in the flyers, right? Yeah. So in the packets that you have, there's a larger copy of the map. It's also on the website. We have Phoenix.gov/middle housing, and actually look at the map there as well. This zoning case, along with the text amendment, will apply the overlay district over the area located from 1 mile of downtown as shown. Downtown includes all properties zoned downtown code. And I had a question right before this presentation that I'll explain. There's a terminology in the state law that says around the central business district. The state law, this particular state law, basically co-opts a term used elsewhere in state law, but differently. It calls it a central business district, but then it gives it its own definition. And one of the primary points of the definition says it shall include all of the area that the city has officially designated as its downtown on September 14th, 2024. So the gray area that you see in the middle of that is the area that is zoned downtown code since 2010. And that code in particular states that this area shall be known as downtown, capital D. So that is actually where we've started with assigning this and complying with the law. The state law, however, does exclude some areas. I think you're going to notice a little bit on the south side of downtown there, where the area that's not red, that area is not included in this effort because it has to do with airport flight noise, and there's a certain level of sound contour of 60 decibels average overnight. That's a day-night level. This law specifically says it cannot be applied in said areas. That's a federal regulation not to encourage more housing in areas that are considered loud. So that is not included. So in terms of what you'll see in the text amendment, for the revised zoning ordinance regulations, the city may not set regulations, permitting, or review processes for middle housing that are more restrictive than those for single-family dwellings. Excuse me. So what you'll see is there are extensive language revisions throughout the zoning ordinance to change references to single-family homes to also apply to middle housing, such as we have single-family design review. We have things that talk about what you do for an individual unit on a lot. They've all been sort of changed to be able to refer to up to 4 units on a lot. And that was quite a bit of work for us to be able to do that. So you'll see a lot of that. We've altered some definitions in a few places to comply with definitions provided in the state law. But the main item is that we created a brand new section in the zoning ordinance, middle housing overlay district, to apply the additional entitlements we're requiring. So while many of you are obviously here concerned about historic preservation, we'd like to point out that I think you very clearly know that they were not exempted. And as Councilwoman Pastor pointed out, the law did not change existing design review procedures for historic or HP zone properties. It does not pointedly attack them, but it did not exempt them. It does not change existing demolition restrictions for eligible historic properties, and it does not require the city to allow 2-story structures everywhere on a lot. And what I mean by that is that this is an example of a typical historic lot. I use an example of a lot that might be zoned R16. It's the minimum size that you can have in R16, which is 60 feet wide by 94 feet deep. And what I've put on this drawing is the area in the middle, the largest, that's white. That is what's known as building envelope. And there is, on the top side of the drawing, there's a dimension that says 25 feet. On the bottom side in yellow, it says 20, that's the front, it's required front yard setback. On the left side, before the sidewalk and the white area, it's a 10-foot side yard setback to the street. And then on the right side, it's a 3-foot setback, which is an interior side yard. That area is where you typically would place a house and you're allowed full height permission of 30 feet and 2 stories. Our current regulations do allow projections in the areas that you see in blue. So the rear yard, which is on the top, you could actually put a 1-story, maximum 15-foot addition onto your house in that area currently. In addition, you could do something under the other laws we recently adopted. That's the same area where you could build an accessory dwelling unit. It's the exact same area. In the front, we've always had a provision for projection of 5 feet into the front yard for half the width of the house. That's what you see in green on the front. What this doesn't tell you, which I will tell you, is that we also have a lot coverage requirement. If you built everything you saw in that drawing, you'd be way over lot coverage. Those are the only areas where you're allowed to put it. That doesn't mean you could actually fill it up completely, but that's where you can put it on a lot. What we've done is, this is typical for now, we have not changed any of those regulations. So where middle housing can be built is in this exact same spot to the exact same dimensions. So that way, not only are we not changing, hopefully, the form of an area that already has existing structures like that, but we're not treating either middle housing or single family housing differently from each other. It's exactly the same. This is a little closer view on some of the drawings I showed at the beginning, which shows the types of things you could see placed on a lot. I just thought it might be useful for you to see. So that's what they're showing is they're calling a stacked duplex. Of course, you're probably familiar with duplexes that could be built side by side, and that's an example there showing it on a lot. And that's an example of something that could be a fourplex on a lot. And again, all of this is available, this presentation is available on our website if you want to spend more time taking a look at that. Now to subdivide. One of the things that people were afraid of is that this would allow a lot of subdivision into very, very tiny lots. The state did not require the city to allow subdivision of lots developed with middle housing, and the city is not proposing to allow more lots than is currently permitted by existing property entitlements. We're also not proposing to allow smaller lots than is currently permitted by existing property entitlements. All of that is remaining the same. Middle housing, however, the way the state is defining it, is multifamily development because it provides more than one primary dwelling unit per lot. So all of the references in the state law talk about the number of units on a lot, not the number of additional lots. It's all about how many units on one lot. The other provision, which I sort of skirted over at the beginning, is citywide. There is a provision to say we have to be able to allow all new subdivisions of 10 acres or larger that are contiguous acres, so they're all connected, to also have up to 20% of the lots have middle housing rights. So what we wrote into the middle housing overlay was an opt-in for subdivisions that meet the criteria. And what they will do is actually subdivide as per normal. And at the end of it, when they've recorded a plat, they will tell us which lots, because there's no directive for us to be able to pick it, which lots should have the middle housing entitlement. And then we will send a map to council, and that will get mapped with the same overlay district that we'll be doing for the areas around Central Phoenix. So this is an example of a 42-lot subdivision. 20% of the lots of 42 is 8.4. I randomly picked 8 and gave an example of what somebody might do, and then we would apply the MH overlay, and those lots would be able to also have the provision for up to 4 units per lot. Now, this was a very uniform subdivision. The thought is, hopefully, if somebody was designing one, they might design something that would fit 4 units a bit better, but that would be up to the developer. So our timeline on this. Essentially, we're the one that I've highlighted in yellow, community information meeting number 2. We do have 2 additional meetings for anybody that would like to hear again, or if you want to get the word around. Both of those will be virtual only, and we do have information on our website, again, which is Phoenix.gov/middle housing, and you can register online for that for those 2 meetings on September 4th and September 16th. In the month of September, we will also be going to the village planning committees, with also planning commission for information only on September 4th. In October, planning commission will be hearing it for recommendation, and on November 5th, city council will be hearing this item. Again, I just explained the website, but there it is on your screen again if you need that. We also have an email inbox, pdd.middlehousing@phoenix.gov, so if you have any questions, we can help you with ones through that site. Just to sum up, though, I'd like to give you some things, key takeaways. It was the Arizona legislature that required the city of Phoenix to allow middle housing. We do have to permit it within 1 mile of downtown with the exclusions. We do have to allow it in up to 20% of new 10-acre plus subdivisions. And we do risk losing all zoning regulations and design review of middle housing if we do not comply by January 1st, 2026. With that, I think we're on to our questions and comments sections, which Tricia Gomes will be facilitating. Thank you, Trish.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, as we said, we are live streaming this, so anybody who wants to speak or make a comment, please come up to the podium here. We do have staff in the back with wireless mics. If you're far in the back or not able to come up to the mic, we can certainly come to you. Just raise your hand. I have all the speaker cards. If there's any that we didn't get, right here, Robert's got them. If you think of something in the meantime and want to fill out a card, my staff is at both sides and they can collect your cards as well. I will call the first couple just so you know that you're coming up. And Nayeli, where'd you go? Nayeli here is going to take time for us, so each speaker will have up to 2 minutes. She'll raise her hand when that 2 minutes has been met, and then we'll go to the next speaker. All right, Aaron, you are first. Yes. And then we have Susan Edwards next. And then Johanna Brandt. So if you can come up to the.
This way.
Whomever you wish to do.
Hi, everyone. Aaron Montano Skirls. I am the Vice President of the Willow Board. I'm also the Willow Chair. Save Historic Arizona, and I'm the Chair. The Camel Village Planning Committee. By the way, September 8th, we will have our meeting at Phoenix College. We're going to be talking about middle housing. So if you want to come and show and make your voice heard, there's another opportunity there. So I must say that when I first heard about this bill, I was actually really excited. Only because when I heard about it, it was being advertised as affordable housing. As a formal affordable housing developer, I'm all about affordable housing. I currently do a lot of stuff to make sure that we're doing things for those that serve our community. However, once I started looking into this, I realized how much it's not about affordable housing, and it's just some nice talking points. There is absolutely no teeth or anything in here that is going to require affordable housing. And if you think that developers are going to come and buy what are now $1 million properties and build a fourplex of affordable housing, well, show me the way, because I just don't see it. And these fourplexes being anything but market or luxury rate is not. It's just not. Please, show me the way if you know better, but it's not going to happen. There's no affordable housing in this. So then I kind of thought, well, how did I miss this? How did we miss this? You know, we're looking through the history, where has been the outreach to the neighborhoods that it directly affects? And let me back up a little bit. Before I started looking into that, I was surprised to see that this is not a citywide initiative. And I was like, okay, so why is it just these neighborhoods that are singled out for this bill? And I couldn't make sense of it, and I started doing some research and looking about the history, like, well, where was the outreach from the state ledge? To the direct neighborhoods it was going to affect. Well, it's far and few between. In fact, it wasn't there. I couldn't find it. So again, you can imagine my gasp, my shock, and why I immediately, with a lot of my neighbors, with a lot of my little board members, jumped on to fight against this. Am I got a minute?
Your time.
It's that. So let me just point this out. 3 feet. 3 feet is the interior setback. So that means, so I'm here. Down. 2 stories, right on your neighbor. You better be really good friends with your neighbor or start loving them soon, because you guys are about to get real close. And it's, thank you.
My name is Susan Edwards, and I'm the president of the Arizona Neighborhood Alliance. We have been fighting this. We fought it at the legislature. We fought it afterwards. I was here at a meeting a year ago when we wanted to expand this city, the Central Business District, saying we can't do this because it makes that many more neighborhoods vulnerable to the stinking awful bill. I have a list of the legislators in the House and the Senate that voted for this thing. Unfortunately, both of our representatives voted for it. Leo Alston, our senator, did not. And I have cards, we send out emails trying to tell people, get your legislators to vote against this thing because it's horrible for us. They did it in the central business districts. They did it in cities over 75,000. And they did it in central business districts on the theory that public transportation was available. The idealists and the builders got together. And the idealists meant well, it really did. But we can't, they were idealists without realism involved. And that was what the problem here. And we tried to tell them this is not realistic, but they weren't listening. We will do more emails, and unfortunately, our legislators tried to put through, Sarah Lurie and Aaron Marquez tried to put another bill through. Aaron was not in the legislature at the time. Aaron was not in the legislature. Charles Lucky got voted out partially because this leads to the ADU bill, which is also causing headaches and pain and awfulness. And the short-term rental organization lobby fought against having any regulations against short-term rentals. These could all be short-term rentals. You could have a fourplex that is full of short-term renters and zillions of cars clogging up our streets. I mean, this is a nightmare straight out of hell. And thank you to the industry. And so I have a list of the legislatures. I have business cards. If you want their bills, we're more than happy to put you on their list if you will tries. But there's more to be done, and hopefully this session maybe I can get something done, because Warren Peterson will not be president of the Senate anymore. He has been a defender of the short-term rental industry. Commodification of housing isn't just short-term rentals, it's investors. And Trump's idea of putting crypto and private equity into retirement plans is even more of a disaster for housing, because that means more investors. If you go on our website, you can see something to make your head explode. It's Arizona Neighborhood Alliance.org. It's just painful and awful, and it's not NIMBYism that's the cause of the problem. It's a whole bunch of people trying to make a lot of money out of housing, and housing should be homes for people, and neighbors should be in neighborhoods, not business.
Thank you. Johanna Grant. I'm sorry? Oh, thank you. Chris Lozano. Doug Plastner. I apologize. Are you Doug? Okay. And then I have Jill Gearing up next.
And you can face whatever way you want.
Yeah, just keep an eye on, I know this is difficult for time, but Nayeli is right in the second row, and she'll raise her hand when your time is up.
Good evening, my name is Dr. Placencia, and I'm pleased to be here this evening. A couple of observations I want to share. One is that no one should think the legislature was performing policy. This is part of the trend. You've seen the news last week, the week before, about taking on the sovereign rights of cities. That's exactly what is taking place here, and we need to understand what we're fighting. Now, in terms of, I'm not a lawyer, but I've worked within land use areas for most of my career. And one of the principles is that as a property owner, as a government, you cannot take adverse impacts on the other property. And this is exactly what we're talking about here, is an adverse impact. The lawyers might call this inverse condemnation. So my recommendation to the city is get with your lawyers. My recommendation to the groups is get with your lawyers and examine this notion of inverse condemnation. The second thing is that the big bad thing, if they don't adopt this, is they lose zoning control and the entire city is pissed off. I think that could be a good thing. I think if Kim Beattie did the same thing, if Glendale did the same thing, if every community that was over 75,000, think about the political move it would have to go back to the legislature and say, legislature, you'll overstep your bounds by attacking our sovereign rights. Thank you.
First of all, come down at the wall. I'm taking a while to do. One thing is that we all hang together or we all hang separate. This is not the time for anyone in any of the neighborhoods that's working on this to make it personal for them. It's time to talk about it. And the first thing I would do if I were you is go online and go to SHPO and look up your historic designation, get a copy of it. You also have one home, take a picture of your house, and you should come to march on the state capitol with all of our houses and all of our windows and how much they mean to us and to the state. The other thing we should do is we should basically call our legislatures and tell them that they basically put that in the, all they will pay this time around, like they did during the freeway, through the nose to replace everything they destroy. Because they are basically, if they basically are going to knock down things in this area, we just have to find a hole. It's then what they're going to do is I already have structural cracks in all the houses. Everybody, I already have structural cracks in my house. It's as old as I am, and I can't breathe in my neighborhood, and it basically had a remodel done next door, and that isn't anybody's fault, but my house is starting to crack. It was built by a design engineer with Navajo Bridge, and he didn't build it for up and down. He built a tank that has a bathroom and everything, so you can run water under and everything, but it gets hot like this.
Ms. Gearing, we're at time.
Okay, I will go then. But anyway, get together a plan, and even if you just don't want to read it all, this is time to say, we're on one mission to do one thing.
Thank you. Tracy Spencer, Mike March, and Michael Markinowitz.
Hi, I just have a question for you because you touched it a little bit in the thought that the building envelope was different than lot coverage. So I'm wondering if you could talk specifically to what the city would be required to allow relative to lot coverage on, say, a 9,000 square foot lot, and what the reality of what would be allowed to be built on the lot that was now vacant might be.
Sure, let me go back and just give you a little bit of a graphic so you can sort of know what I'm talking about there. As you can see, I mean, I think you have a pretty good idea that on that exceeds 50% of that lot, all the areas that are not yellow. Our base lot coverage for most districts, and definitely the ones that you see around Central Phoenix, is 50%. So on a lot that is vacant, you can construct and cover, it's coverage, so it's like a footprint. It doesn't take into account different stories. It's just complete coverage of 50%. There is a provision in there for accessory dwelling units and attached shade structures like porches that give you an additional 10%. But the provision is for ADUs only. It is not for middle housing. So middle housing would be it's just considered multifamily development. So it would be limited to 50%, but they could have attached shade structures that might use up to 10%. Is that enough? Thanks.
Sorry, I don't mean, if you're gonna ask a question or comment, we need to comment first, but we also need you on the mic or you won't hear it on the live screen.
What I will put out there real quick is that building code is separate from zoning, and that while we have a 3-foot interior side yard setback, it's effectively 5, gives you 2 more feet, because otherwise you could have no windows. You could have no windows. Building code requires a 5-foot setback to have opening in a wall for fire ratings.
Are you Mike? Okay. Mike March.
I have a list of random stuff and that won't really now organized. So the first thing is what I'm going to ask was there anybody, when they went through this process, did anyone who owns a home in this area come and say they wanted this, or that wasn't even part of the process? Like, did they talk to anyone in the area, or?
I think the council will probably give the best analysis of that. The first we heard of it, the city was looking at a bill that was introduced into the legislature.
Okay. So in like the more that I learn about this bill, it just seems as obvious, I think, to everyone here. This is a very punitive bill. It seems like it seems like an attack. Like, everyone here who's bought one of these homes kind of buys it knowing that they're not just buying it for themselves, but they're preserving it for the future of whoever lives in afterwards, like more than any other home. And it seems like they're just trying to attack everything about that. I mean, like, all the hard work that people have done to put these things on the historical registers like that is just being fully attacked. And the last thing I want to say is when we have these other meetings in the future, is there a way for us to like get people who we can't compel them, but like the governor, she signed this bill. There are people who proposed the bill. There are organizations that pushed it. I'm sure Airbnb loved it. So getting these people to kind of defend that. Maybe they'll change their hearts about it, but they should be here to kind of hear the kind of havoc that they've caused. Maybe they love it. I don't know, but that's the thing that I think that we should try for, if it's possible, in future meetings. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Marcinkiewicz, and first of all, can I see who is for this? Show of hands. For it. You're for this. Okay. I'm not for this. I've lived through something like this. I lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which was ravaged by new development, tearing down historic houses, which is going to happen in my neighborhood, which is Willow. I can see the handwriting is on the wall. This is not low-income housing. It's going to be developers coming in, paying top dollar for these houses, tearing them down, and then building monstrosities next to your house. You're going to pay for it. And if you want an example, that place where they built those townhouses and the row houses over there on that vacant lot, go down that street, look at that house that's right next door to them. They have to look up at that, and it's just disgusting. So that's how I feel. That's my opinion.
Hi, my name is A.R.S Marquez. I'm your new, I just want to say that again, new state representative. I was not there in 2024 when this piece of legislation passed. At the same time in 2024, there was another piece of legislation that went through the legislature, the buy right, allowing or forcing cities to have ADUs on properties. So one win we did get this legislative session, if Ilse from the city of Phoenix is here, she should raise her hand. She's in the back. Ilse is the lobbyist for the city of Phoenix. Sat down with her right away when I got to the legislature this past January. We put two standalone bills together. One was to allow cities to require on ADUs owner occupancy. So I hope, Susan, you appreciate that at least as one safeguard so that we're not allowing ADUs to become hotels within the city of Phoenix. We did have a standalone bill that Representative Ligori and Senator Alston and I introduced to exempt historic neighborhoods specifically from what we're dealing with now. Unfortunately, we did not get a single Republican chair to hear the bill. I negotiated till the very end, tried to sneak this into the budget. And I think somebody mentioned the Senate president is very much not in support of getting this exemption through the legislature. But there's a chance with the new Senate president potentially coming in this January that we can try again. And I think what you heard from Councilwoman Pastor is really my message to all of you is, Ilse, raise your hand again. Get to know the city of Phoenix lobbyists and come down to the legislature. But it really, there's a weird coalition of both Democrats and Republicans that came together to support this, and I think Democrats were convinced this was going to lead to affordable housing in our communities. And then I think there were free market proponents that really just believe the cheapest way to get housing anywhere in the communities is to let the free market dictate things. But I know, as a Willow resident myself, I love living in Willow, and I think we have to have a much more surgical approach towards looking at creating more affordable housing in our communities, and we have to make sure we're protecting the things that make living in Phoenix and living in a historic neighborhood it's where I choose to live, it's where I'm raising my daughter, and I think we all know the unique character that these neighborhoods bring to our community, so we have to fight to preserve and protect them. So I hope all of you will join me in that. But we also have to find the Republican state representatives, the state senators in the suburbs or the rural communities in Arizona to have some historic neighborhoods in their communities as well to care about this, because that's what it will take. The state legislature is a math problem when we come down to it. There's 27 Democrats and 33 Republicans in the state House, and 17 Republicans and 13 Democrats in the state Senate. So it's really a math problem of how do you get a majority. And in this case with housing, there was this weird bipartisan coalition of both Democrats and Republicans that supported these two bills. we got to pick the new majority to get this exemption passed, and we'll be working on that. I'll reintroduce this legislation come January, and hope to be there to help us get a hearing and help us get a vote on this bill. So thank you so much, and I'm proud to represent all of you.
Thank you. Mr. Ballard. Dr. Robert Keenan and Mr. Dozier.
Good evening. I guess I'm kind of old school. I have the baby boomer sheet on paper here as opposed to my telephone, so I apologize. But good evening to our city staff, Ranking PD Director Josh. My name is Brad Brower. I'm a Tortellini resident of the Willow Neighborhood Association with the Willow District itself, and I'm the current president of Willow. Willow's been supportive of multifamily housing all around us for at least the last 30 years, beginning with this down Tapestry. The meters, the apartments in the Port McDowell and Central. Most recently, a 28-unit community that will rent for $4,000 plus or sell for $1.1 million whenever they decide to take ownership. What we're not seeing in whether condos, townhouses, or apartments is affordable anywhere in downtown or Midtown. And if you look at rentcafe.com for downtown Phoenix, average beginning rent at $1,750 a month. Show me where that's at. So I recognize we're not here to fight the state overreach, but I'm here to ask the city to make some implementation of this law as painless as possible for the existing neighborhoods along with protecting historic homes, districts, and best of their ability. Willow was already zoned for duplexes, and so many other of the 22 districts that will be affected by this, and now except for accessory dwelling units. However, many of those are going to be short-term rentals, taking them out of the housing market. It's time for smarter legislation from the state. There's some creative ideas from the city. Provide something affordable, possibly on city-owned properties like Tempe has done. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? My name is Dr. Robert Cannon. I have lived in Willow for 26 beautiful years. I have been past president for multiple terms. I've been on the board 18 of those years. I want to talk to you a little about something different. We've heard the mechanical efforts. I want to provide us some ammunition for our defense as well as our offense. I have been called many times over the last year while we worked to fight this bill with Brad and the rest of the board, the term NIMBY, not in my backyard. So what I say to that is this. When I first moved to Willow and became the president, we were the first historic neighborhood that welcomed light rail. We opened our community to a rather controversial time. Second, at that time, we negotiated Willow Walk. I remember Willow Walk. Now it's called Tapestry on Central. We're able to stop First Avenue. You may not realize the Willow Conservation Plan at one time had Central 1, 3, 5, and 7. Those of you that live north of Holly and Monte Vista know we were able to negotiate the saving of 9 homes. So we emulated historic preservation. When the music came in at Central and Thomas, and Central McDowell, we negotiated. I distinctly remember asking them one important thing, to make sure they had a pet relief area. But we welcomed them. We welcome them now on 3rd and 5th Avenue in our bike lane, our Sonoran bike path. So my point is this, you've heard the technical perspective behind us, but our backyards are important to us. We hold in our backyards many, many things. But before I move into what goes on our backyards, we have been accused of not having enough density. Those of you that live near Virginia and First Avenue, you see we have little lots going in. There's density. We answer that. Affordability is another issue. You're beginning at 1.2 million. To think it's affordable, we can solve affordable through this bill is ridiculous. We should not, we all invested in our property. We all don't have garages. We've been through a lot together. Our Willow Conservation Plan is firm. Anytime I have defended Willow in front of the city, most of the time, I've had to use the Willow Conservation Plan. But I want to leave you with what goes on in our backyard. We have Willow Kids Easter hunt. We have home tour receptions. We have my wedding reception was in my backyard when it became legal to be hired. My husband, who was a retired Phoenix police officer, when he came up graveyard shift with his 8 crew, we had their final crunch on a Tuesday morning. You talk about a test of a marriage, living with somebody that works graveyard for 4 years, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and some of you know Don. He's a lot of work, but 25 years later.
Mr. Cannon, we're at time.
Done?
We're at time.
We're at time. So with this, final point, we will not give our backyards. We will run the fight, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
From a lot of people from Willow on, I think one of the big things that I'm concerned about is reading the government relations final report for the legislative session for 2024, when they were glad that they limited the bring around Central City to 1 mile. That included all of us that are sitting here. Why didn't they push for an exemption for historic preservation? We've heard that those empowered didn't want it. We don't know that. I just hope when this new amendment is introduced to the legislature, that the city of Phoenix does back it with all their might and all their will. Because we will be there fighting for an exemption for all historic districts in the state of Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Cowgan, Mary Duran, and Oma Wagner. Just if you're hearing that the ringing is Nayeli taking time. So when you hear that, make sure you wrap up your comments. Thank you.
All right, I'll get up here. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I moved to Arizona when I graduated from college and fell in love with the desert and fell in love with the historic districts. I used to live in Arcadia, and I bailed out of there about 10 years ago in 2016 and moved to Willow because of the disaster of what the city of Phoenix and developers and real estate agents, no offense to any real estate agent, of marketing Arcadia as the next Brentwood and Hollywood Hills. And that's what we have. So I'm glad I left. But what I would like to talk about is, and I made notes too, because I'm on the city's website, planning department, the first thing that they state on the planning department's website is preserve our historic sites. That is the #1 thing. The other things are planning, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to know, does the word site not include historic homes? And we all know that we're fighting for these historic homes. And also that the city of Phoenix has 15 villages, and each one of those villages has central core districts. But only our 2 districts in Canto and Central City has been listed out as those affected areas. I think that's discriminatory, and I think it's very selective. But what I want you to think about is, if you look at all the other cities that it's going to hit, it's Scottsdale, Tempe, Gilbert, Flagstaff, Goodyear, Glendale, Mesa, Scottsdale, did I already say that? Every one of these communities has long-term historic districts because these communities have been here since the start of our state. And we're going to let that go. I suggest that we look to who our legislatures are, where their money came from, and the three primary sponsors for this bill. I can read them all. Michael Carbone, District 24. Cesar Aguilar, District 26. Leo Biasucci, I can't say that. District 30. David L. Cook. I don't even know where he is. Travis Grantham. He was inactive during this whole session. Consuelo Hernandez, District 21. David Livingston, District 28. Annalise Ortiz, District 24. Michelle Pena, District 23. Austin Smith, I don't know where he is. Judith Wilmeth, Sonny Borelli, David C. Farnsworth, Brian Fernandez, Anna Hernandez, and Warren Peterson. Most of these people have no skin in the game because they live in communities that don't have 75,000 people as residents, or it's all open, vacant land or state parks area. Thank you. Please stay with that. I'm getting to talk twice, and that's probably not fair. My name is Mary Green. I've been in Will 41 years, and I will tell you that I have friends in the legislature. Had I known this was happening, I'd have done something. The ones I have talked to think that Warren Peterson and the Republicans are punishing the people they consider to be the core Democrats in the state. That's in the city. That's a problem. I can't prove that because they won't come out and say it, but they told me that. Number two, we're going to have to do this. But once we do, or if we don't, we have to get the city to not let builders build anywhere they want, as high as they want, as wide as they want. The inspector comes out and says, oh, you can't do that. They do it anyway. Nothing happens. So we need some city council representatives, and Michael is one of them because he will help us enormously. Please call your legislators and tell them to unload this bill.
Hi, I'm Opal Wagner. I also live in Willow, and I co-chair our State Historic Arizona with Aaron Montano Soros, who spoke earlier. We handed out the little cards. If you are frustrated because you feel like you didn't have enough information on this, you were left in the dark, we're trying to fill that void for the upcoming legislative session. So if you will log into our website or go on there, we're going to keep you updated on what is happening with this as this text amendment moves through the city, up to the city council, and also what's going to happen with this as our legislators, Aaron Marquez and Sarah Ligori, try to get a bill passed to exempt our historic districts from middle housing. Saying that, I just want to say I also serve on Cano Village, and we have, over the past few years and in the past, as been mentioned, approved thousands of units of new housing. And Cano Village is the most densely populated area of Phoenix. We are the OG middle housing inclusionary zoning. One thing a lot of people don't realize, our lots are already zoned for duplexes. So I'm not sure why the state legislature felt it was okay to target it. But I'm going to ask Chris a question. It's the same one I asked at a City of Tempe meeting, and I think it kind of gives you a vision of what the state legislature wants our neighborhood to look like. So Chris, my question is, under this zoning, could I end up with a fourplex on one side of me that is all Airbnbs or short-term rentals, and a fourplex on the other side of me that's all Airbnbs and short-term rentals, meaning I'm living in the middle of 8 short-term rentals? Could that happen under this law?
There would be a process, but that is not impossible.
That's what your state legislature envisions for our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Dr. Robinson, Charles Sieber, I apologize, and Mary Roberts.
Hello, my name is Sasha Robinson. I am the new Story Preservation Association president. Story. Thank you for my FQ Story folks who showed up today. Woo! I see you, you're amazing. Yes. So, as I'm learning more about this since 2024, obviously the most concerning thing to me is that it has such a small, very focused footprint, right? And I know it does include new developments, 20%, but it really puts the burden of solving this affordable housing crisis on this tiny little sliver. It doesn't even go all the way around the downtown area because of the flat runway. So it really puts pressure on so many historic neighborhoods, and it will absolutely lead to more demolition. There's just no away. So, and I heard Josh, I believe, at the at the Historic Preservation Commission meeting mention that you weren't able really to get much context behind what those three scary words without any limitations really means. Whether it means there's just a Wild West crazy no zoning whatsoever, or does it mean that the city doesn't implement a plan that just middle housing will then be allowed in any single family lot, zone lot, citywide? Because if it just means that and not a free-for-all, personally, that sounds like a better deal because then it takes the pressure off of our historic districts. So, but that's my comment.
Is there a question? I'm sorry. Did you have a question that I missed? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, my question is that why hasn't there been more of a push to figure out what without any limitations actually means if the city did nothing? Like,
I think we feel that would probably be litigated, which is why.
okay. Thank you.
Charles? And Mary Roberts?
Hello, my name is Charles Sackler, and I'm an Arizona native. Oh, push the mic? Oh, there we go. My name is Charles Sackler, I'm an Arizona native. Family, knows me? Okay, there we are. Test, test. Okay. All right. So, you know, I just think that the state legislators experimented with artificial intelligence and came up with this bill. You look at it, and there is no specifics. There is no real law that this is really, or even an issue that this is addressing. And so I really think that we need to, let me back up and just say that for the last several years, I've been living in Parkdale. And we had a similar situation come up where we had a historic bandstand that had been there since the time that the town was founded. And so many people got married at that bandstand. We've had lots of festivals in that Central Park. And all of a sudden, the town council wanted to demolish our beloved bandstand and put up something completely new. Well, this is historically preserved, we all said. And sure enough, we went around and we had a petition, we got enough signatures, and we got this town council to relent. They didn't end up demolishing the building, they ended up fixing our beloved bandstand, and it still stands today and looks beautiful, even better than it did before. So I think we really have the possibility to do the same thing here in Phoenix. We just have to band together. We do have to do a petition drive. There are a number of options that we have available to us because of the Arizona Constitution. We can't do a referendum because it's been a year since, but we can do a citizens initiative and repeal this AI state law. Now, the citizens initiative takes about 300,000 qualified signatures to make this an official thing. And we have until July 2nd to get those 300,000 signatures. That's a lot. But I think we all have friends, we all have 20 people who are like-minded, and we can pass along a petition. We can get notaries to sign off on circulators, petition circulators, and we can make our voice at least heard to the state legislature in coordination with what these lobbyists are doing. And I think that, if anything, when this goes to court, which I think it will, lawyers can point to a petition drive that's taking place that seeks to repeal this state law entirely.
Sorry, we're in time.
Just one more comment. I think there's enough people in all the surrounding communities, Flagstaff, Tucson, Gilbert, and Phoenix, to make this a reality. And if not, we need to pay attention to November 5th, is when the city council votes on this, and we can do a citywide referendum within 30 days of that. And this is something that Terry Goddard did as mayor when he was making districts in Phoenix. So please keep in touch. My name is Charles. I used to run a publication called The Noise. I have an email, chuck@thenoise.us. I'm going to do a story on this, and I would like to hear all of your comments. And I'll wrap this up real quick for you. Thank you very much for letting me go over. But please, let's stay in touch. Let's get some signatures going. Thank you very much.
We definitely want to get to everyone's comments and questions. So I just want to make sure that everybody adheres to time. Mary Roberts?
My name's Mary. A.R.S Section. I live in Country Club Park. I have mostly questions. One, is there a limit on the height of these buildings that can go on each lot? Can there be more than one owner, like 4 if you're doing a quad? Can you have 4 owners? Can they be co-ops? Can they be condos? Can they be rentals? And how does all of this density come into play with regards to the city's use of encouraging more plants for trees and everything? And most of the lot is taken up for the building, which creates more heat, and also with regards to raising the heat level in the dome of the city. And my only comment would be that since I've lived here, it seems that anything the city or the state can do to make it anything that's charming or unique, they want to tear it down. Thank you.
I can address a few of those. I believe I addressed, I'll go over again in case you missed it. I believe I addressed the height somewhat back on the slide that looks like this. And just a quick summary, the area in the middle that's white is allowed up to 2 stories. That's existing now, and that's not proposed to change. If you were to build an extension into the area that's blue, the limitation is 1 story and 15 feet. The little green area on the front is an area you can project a little bit of your front yard to the full 2-story height of 30 feet. That is not changing. In terms of ownership, the only provision in the state law that we're adhering to says that the city cannot require owner occupancy of any structure on the lot that's in middle housing. We are not allowing additional subdivision of properties smaller than the existing lots. So you couldn't have fee title, means land ownership. There's nothing prohibiting under Arizona law of somebody turning into condominiums. I don't believe that's the current favor of financing currently, but that would probably be the only way that ownership could happen under this current law. Not that somebody will invent something in the future, but it does not provide for the state law. And did I miss anything?
With regards to trees and...
Oh, I'm sorry about that one. The state law doesn't address that. It basically tells the city exactly what we need to allow. And hopefully with the lot coverage provisions we have, when I did explain that the maximum lot coverage is 50% generally with a little bit extra 10% for an ADU attached shade structures, that still leaves 40% of the lot for plants that's not changing. So it's not that you can build and cover more of the lots under the way we've written this. So hopefully that stays the same.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, was that Mary Roberts? Okay. All right, Doug Klunder? Thank you. Jim Huntworth? And then Patient Huntworth.
This is great, I get to talk first for once. Okay. Yeah, my name is Jim Huntworth. Patty and I live in the Los Olivos historic area. There are 13 historic houses in our area. There were 13 historic houses in our area when we bought our house in 1977. How did we preserve them? Well, we fought like heck. We had zoning battles. We had lawsuits. We sued people, we got sued for over $1 million at one point. We bought houses before they could be bought by somebody else. and we refurbish them ourselves, and we resold them. I can see there is a whole room full of people here who are ready to fight. And only 13 of us, but we're standing with you. And hopefully you're standing with us. I'm optimistic that there's a good chance to win this fight. There's one thing that really bugs me about what the city is doing. If we win, the city ordinances are still going to be in place. We win at the legislature, the city ordinance will still be in place. When you talk to your city council people, tell them, put a clause in this thing that says if we win and get this repealed, that everything disappears at sunset. The state legislature knows how to do that. They did it with abortion rights, for example. So it shouldn't be any surprise to them that the city stands up and does the same thing. Thank you very much.
You know what makes me sick about this legislation? It's how stupid it was, how thoughtless for the legislature and maybe even the city to choose the precious historic legacy of Phoenix to destroy. What other city in this country would take its precious historic legacy and destroy it? Beacon Hill in Boston? Oh no. New York, Washington, San Francisco, those are real cities. I really wonder when Phoenix will begin to put historic preservation first. I feel even sicker when I realize how easy it would be to do this correctly. Many of us here could counsel with the city to find places for affordable housing. But oh no, we can't do it that way. We have to do it. We have to confiscate everyone's zoning. And make no mistake, single-family zoning is the bare minimum you need for a desirable neighborhood. Ask Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, North Phoenix, Clearwater Hills. Destroy the zoning and you destroy the neighborhood. And don't you dare call us NIMBYs. We have all spent decades accommodating mixed uses and community needs. Affordable housing can go in our backyard where it fits, just not in our living room. And don't tell me that you can't do anything, City of Phoenix. You're the 5th largest city in the country. This happened because the legislature thought we aren't powerful and we don't count. We do count, don't we?
Dana Barnett, Michael Mizuku, and Michael Zamora. Dana Burnett.
Yes, hello, my name is Dana Burnett. I've been living in the Garfield neighborhood on East McKinley since '78. I received my notification that I am in the area, the zone for that is affected by this statute. Let me see, I've generated a one-page analysis, the principal conceptual origin comparisons of similar regulatory actions produced in states in the U.S. Foundation of this analysis, 6-page report, handed out copies of it. Let me see. Report concludes a high-resolution timeline table presenting each major event, ensuring understanding the state's trajectory, trajectory, and implications. 3 specific concerns that I've identified. Number 1 is under the A.R.S 9/46213 is a subsection B. Municipality may not do any of the following, and under 4, it's to set restrictions permitting review process that are more restrictive than the single-family dwelling. The historic preservation is an overlay like A.R.S dwelling within the same zone R5. This reading would be illustrated by the premise of the conflict created between an R4 and an R5 zone parcel. They are similarly zoned single-family parcels, yet they are required are the new requirements required on all the residential parcels. They can't be more restricted. If not done now, the state controls what gets built, where it's built, and the size it's built. The permitting and review process becomes meaningless. Review of that structural design building material, there are no historical protections in the statute. Let me see, HB 2719 introduced in February 11, 2025, tried to address that issue for a guiding committee. So any assurance of historical protection only wishful thinking.
Mr. Burnett, you're at time.
Number 2, the subsection G, that raises the infrastructure concern that the utilities will have apparently what sounds like veto authority.
Mr.
Because
Burnett.
they'll be the ones that have to provide the utilities. And then of course there's the legal concern.
It might have done it. But you are at time, sir. I do have several more speakers, and I want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity that have submitted their part.
My next concern is the legal concern that it doesn't proceed.
Mr. Could you please? Everyone took a 2 minutes, and your time is now up. We're happy to take more comments later, or we can. 2 minutes for everyone, sir. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Mazzacco. I am one of those candidates that Laura Bessel was talking about. Thank you. Candidate for Phoenix City Council in District 4. Before I start on HB 2721, which does deeply concern me, I just want to acknowledge the 22 Native nations that have inhabited this country, this state, since its inception, and its upkeeping and cultural helping of us to make this beautiful state our home today. And also the building that we're in, acknowledging the building that we live in, and that we're presenting in today, is part of the Phoenix Indian soul. Whose sole purpose was to tear our culture and language away, but we are resilient people, and we are still here. My grandparents went to a school like this, and so I'm proud to say that as a Native person, I am now seeking a position of leadership in this very district, and I'm very proud of that. But let's talk about HB 2721. The legislation represents a state legislature that is far-reaching in its local decision-making, stripping away the very protections that have safeguarded our neighborhoods for generations. 22 of Phoenix's 36 historic districts. Think about that. 22 of Phoenix's 36 historic districts. Communities like Willow and Cantor-Palmcroft, Garfield that we just heard from, or Coronado, will lose their ability to control their own destiny when this law takes effect in January, which is only 122 days away. I'm sorry. What we're facing isn't just policy, it's potential erasure of our community and identity. These historic districts aren't museum pieces. They're living, breathing communities where our families live and where our businesses thrive, where Arizona's architectural heritage tells a story of who we are. From Spanish colonial to Pueblo revival, these neighborhoods represent the cultural DNA of our city. But here's what really troubles me. This law doesn't solve our housing crisis. I think we all understand that $1 million units aren't affordable housing, correct? We're not helping working families. We're not helping. What we're doing is helping developers and their fat profits while destroying irreplaceable community assets. True housing solutions focus on vacant lots and underutilized areas, not gutting the very neighborhoods that give Phoenix its character. Our community deserves better. We deserve better instead of this false choice between housing and heritage. Cities across the nation have successfully solved this problem while protecting their historic districts. We can grow thoughtfully without sacrificing our neighborhoods. The question isn't whether Phoenix should grow, it's whether we will grow wisely. That's the word there, wisely. We need housing solutions that respect community input, preserve our architectural heritage, and actually create affordable options for families. HB 2721 does none of these things. Resolution demanding an exemption for the historic district from overreaching mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Zamora, David Stanton, and Debbie Marcelo. I also can't see.
Hi, my name is Mike, and I want to talk to you about something that you have additional ability to take care of these. And then afterwards, I would like to then ask a question of the city, if I could. So in essence, your neighborhood deed restrictions, or CC&Rs, they still control what is allowed in your specific subdivision. And so here's a list of kind of what you can do. The first thing is find your CC&Rs, which are rules recorded for your subdivision, and the corresponding plat map. That can be very simply done by contacting a title company and asking for the recorded CC&Rs based on your property address and the associated plat map for that. In essence, read them, understand the restrictions, such as 1 story only, maximum height, and/or no rentals for that. If something violates those CC&R in your subdivision, then please talk to your neighbors and then consult a real estate attorney. Please note, the city does not enforce CC&Rs, owners do, through a civil action at the Arizona Superior Court. If the city issues a permit, your CC&Rs can still restrict what an owner may do in your subdivision. Owners enforce those restrictions in a civil court. In essence, a lawsuit against the neighbors, not the city. Also, please note, I am not an attorney. This is not legal advice. I do not work for a title company. I am just a concerned citizen. Now, if I can, my question for the city. Basically, this bill was introduced in February 2024. It was passed in May 2024, a couple months later, and you stated that it has to be complied by December 2025. You indicated that Phoenix engaged the state lawmakers prior to its passage. Given the timeline, why did the city wait about 15 months after the law passed to inform the residents? I recognize the city needed a few months to analyze the law and draft an ordinance, but the long gap of 15 months limited the residents' ability to participate meaningfully and to plan their neighborhood. Please provide, not only you, but the other city members that are here, a clear explanation for the reason for this long delay. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the best explanation I can give you was that there were 2 bills that were consecutive at the time, 2720, which was ADUs, and 2721. City did have an idea of what this might do, but given everybody's reaction, I think we wanted to take just a little bit of time to figure out whether or not it was really going to have this effect that it's actually having on neighborhoods.
Hold on.
I was going to say, I am, however, lower level, and I'm not quite involved in the politics of the city, so I'm going to let someone else, I think, chip in a little bit here who I think has a little bit more information than I do.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Josh Bednarik, the Service Director for the Planning and Development Department. It's a great question. I think as Chris was highlighting, we had a couple of bills that were thrown our way. One with the one with the 2024 deadline with the ADUs, that certainly took up some time. I think as the councilman also noted, we fully anticipated another bill that Representative Marquez ran for the 2025 session. So we didn't want to run with anything, not knowing if something might have been changed as part of this past session. As we've discussed today, it wasn't, right? So I think we will kind of wait and see. I think what Chris was saying there is we wanted to see what would happen in the 2025 session, knowing that there was so much pushback, and whether or not the law was going to change. It didn't. And so here we are. So I think that's the short of it. We had several bills that we had to run that had a shorter deadline that we had to get done before this. And we wanted to see if another bill was going to get passed that would modify this, and it didn't. So here we are.
When was that bill that didn't get passed? When did that die? The bill you're talking about.
The question was, when did the bill, I don't know when the bill died, sir. Again, you know, part of our responsibility is to make sure that we're complying with the law. I appreciate the fact that we're certainly here and you're frustrated. But at the end of the day, right, when the law passes, the city is required to comply with that. I would hope that there would be the state and others would be responsible for letting you know when they're passing those laws. We're at the point now where we're trying to take the steps to make sure that you know, and that we have this deadline moving. Unfortunately, there's no wiggle room for me to not comply with it.
You got more people want to ask questions.
If your job was just to tell the council what they want to do, they could have done it.
The question was, and I guess I don't quite follow. I'm not saying that I couldn't change that. I said part of what I was saying is that earlier this year, as staff, we were watching what was going to happen at the state legislature. If there was a bill that changed what this law said, then we would need to address that. It didn't happen. So I wasn't saying that we were having an active role in that, but we were watching whether or not there was going to be a change.
David Stanton? And sir, you're going to speak on behalf of Debbie Marsiglio.
I am David Stanton, resident of Epsom Story. When I heard about this just a couple days ago as a resident, one of the first questions I had was this very strange operation where a state legislature got involved in a city historic districts. What state concern is that of the state of Arizona from the state legislature to want to pass a law for this little small section downtown? Where is the state concern? I contacted a friend of mine, which is a legal attorney at the structure of ASU. He did a very quick survey the last 2 days and could not find anywhere in the United States where the state legislature had got into this conversation which assert the federal requirements of the historic districts specifications. Nowhere is that happening, only here the first time in the state of Arizona. So he recommended that in our effect of trying to resolve some of this, maybe these very strong legal defense where we would make the case to a court that the state of Arizona legislature assert their responsibility and set aside federal requirements on historic districts. It has never been done before, and a good case to be done here in Arizona.
Good evening. I'm Steve Marsiglio, standing up for Eddie Marsiglio. I don't know if you guys know it, but we've lived here in the districts 40 years. We were in Story when they put the I-10 through, and we went to the dedication for the tunnel, and we walk. My wife walks every day. I don't know if you've seen her with the stroller and our dog, a little red stroller, but I see people here from Willow, I see people from Coronado, I see people from Story. We lived in Story, we live in Willow right now. We are city people, okay? We saw what development has done. It's been good, some bad, but this, now what's gonna happen is a lot of the flippers are gonna come in and it's gonna just get ruined, basically. So
my thought is the city needs to back us. We're city people. All those people that are here, we're all dedicated to restoring and doing the things that historical people have to do to make the community that we have. We know all the people here. My wife knows all the dogs and cats. My GPS says I walked an average of 12,000 steps a day. I'm down to 10 now because it's summertime, so we can only walk in the night and then really in the morning. But she walks 20,000 steps a day. So we walk in Story, we walk in Willow, we walk in Palm Front, we walk all over the city every day. So we've seen these high risers come up from little lots where they're saying 10,000 square foot or whatever, 10 acres or whatever. We've seen those high risers grow. When you were building these things, what was considered the high risers? What was considered low income, affordable housing? Was it just to get the college students to use their GSA money to rent an apartment? Why are they building all these apartments and they're not considered affordable housing? That's what I want to know. So that's my question.
I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not actually sure what the question was, to be honest with you. I got something about affordable housing and exactly why. I'm not sure that a lot of the zoning entitlements that were provided were required to be affordable. The state actually has another preemption of the city requiring affordable housing through zoning. We're not allowed to do that. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. That's another state law, just so you know.
Just to your question about requiring affordable housing, is that we're preempted by the state. We're not allowed to require affordable housing through zoning. So your question was, why were the high rises that were built not required to be affordable? And sir, I do apologize. Your time is up. I have 9 more speakers and we have about 15 more minutes. So I want to make sure that everybody that has submitted a card does have the opportunity to speak.
Your follow-up question is?
Sir, go ahead.
She's not going to let me answer, sir. Sorry.
Sir?
Is the city going to back us when they?
I'm simply not answering because I'm not a person. I can't answer that question because I'm not the city council.
Joanne Kaufman, Steve Rapp, and Mary Louise Rocky.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Kaufman. Can you all hear me? Yes. I'm a 39-year resident of the Willow Historic District. 39 years ago, I served on the board and was instrumental in pushing through historic preservation. Prior to that, we were a special conservation district. We fought long and hard to become historic. I feel that this is nothing less than a betrayal of what we fought for. Our historic neighborhoods are the crown jewels of Phoenix. If we lose these, we have no character. We will be like any other soulless large city. I don't think any of us want that. I would urge all of you to take a little field trip on 1st Avenue, north of Montana Boulevard, and see the kind of construction that's going in. Now, they've shown us some very pretty pictures. What I would like to bring to your attention is the ugly, communist-style, boxy, gray building on 1st Avenue, somewhat north of Montana. I can't be sure the exact area. But if this is what we can expect, I am wholeheartedly against this. And I would urge all of you to fight this with every ounce of your being.
Mary Louise Rocky. Mr. Rapp indicated his questions have been answered.
I'm Mary Louise Rockland. Most people in Story know me as Mimi or Sue's mother. I've lived in Story for now just 37 years. And if you want to know what middle housing is going to do to our community, just take a drive down Linwood and look at what's happening on 7th Avenue in Linwood. 3 of our houses have been totally gutted. They are totally being, the backyard has AU, whatever, the guest house, which a 2-car garage. There is no space on the backyard. I don't know how people are going to walk in and out of that house. The only space, green space, is the front yard. They park their cars there, the construction work, people park their cars there, and the dumpsters there. Now, think about this. If you have a family moving into that house, they have 2 cars, a 2-car garage. If you have a family moving into the guest house, they might have 2 cars, like a 1-bedroom guest house, and they're going to rent it out. That's 2 cars that are going to be sitting on Linwood, right off the 7th Avenue. I go down there almost every day. My car has almost been head-on collision with people zipping off 7th Avenue into there because it's a 1-car road now. We have to think about that. We also are creating a heat island. We're removing our trees. We're removing our grass. We're removing our natural habitat. It's totally ridiculous. So, the other question I have for the city is that in the historic district in Story, we have houses that are not contributed. Okay? Are they going to be going under the same demolition rules and regulations that we have now for historically designated houses?
Going to introduce Kevin Waite, representing our Historic Preservation Office.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Seriously, your passion when it comes to historic neighborhoods is fantastic. I've been here 27 years, and this is the best turnout I've seen for anything. I wish it were something more positive, but I'm grateful that you guys are here and that you care. Thank you. As far as the question regarding non-contributors, I am sorry to say that they are not subject to the 1-year delay that a contributing property would be. If it's a contributing property in the historic district, then we can delay demolition for up to 1 year while we try to save it. If it's a non-contributing property, they are not required to wait a year. They could go ahead and get approval for demolition sooner, but there is a requirement that a replacement plan has to be approved first through a public hearing process. So it would give everybody in the neighborhood an opportunity to comment and weigh in on that proposal before a permit were issued. And it would still have to follow historic preservation guidelines for new construction.
So we still have some.
Correct, yes. The historic preservation review process is not changing.
Okay.
We might have to allow a couple more units on some lots, but overall, the process is going to stay the same, and we are going to hold the line as much as we possibly can in historic preservation.
If they put up a fourplex, okay, can they sell individual units as a co-op, or do they have to be rentals? That doesn't say it in the bill, and I also am resident of Flagstaff. I live here and there, and that's the big fight up in Flagstaff. So I don't know how to do anything going to address that.
The only thing in the state law that doesn't allow us to require owner occupancy, so it doesn't allow us to require it, but it doesn't prevent somebody from finding a legal way to do ownership, if that is the question. I'm not really familiar with co-ops, but condominiums, if somebody was able to do under Arizona's condominium law, they could attempt to do that. It does seem to be somewhat problematic. That hasn't been very popular in more recent years. But there's nothing prohibiting it, and there's nothing that we have prohibiting that.
Thank you. All right, I have Nicole Sanderson, Richard Hawk, And we just have a few more minutes before we wrap up tonight, so.
Hi. I'm on the board of the Downtown Core Neighborhood Association. We support this bill. We think historic preservation can coexist with this bill. So I own a loft condo at Fillmore and 2nd, not historic. My energy bills are very low though, I like that. I do wish our building code required firewalls, that would be better. But I do love living in attached housing. Our present or old zoning code limits most neighborhoods to about 8 dwelling units per acre. There are some big drawbacks to that. Limiting housing so much keeps it scarce. It drives up its value further. That's a problem right now. It forces people to own many cars, 1 per adult generally, drive for every trip. Creates more pavement and infrastructure per person, which is very expensive to maintain. And generally speaking, for a neighborhood to be walkable, it requires about 20 dwelling units per acre. When people live close to jobs, amenities, and transit, they can drive less. So new housing downtown actually adds the least traffic. Out of any location in the valley that we add housing, downtown Phoenix, new housing would create the least new traffic. Historic boards can still control a lot, materials, facades, and other features that they can use to maintain accurate historic character. And I would encourage everyone to go over to Roosevelt and look at his beautiful 100-year-old quadplexes and small apartment buildings. Are gorgeous. They uplift the neighborhood. That can be maintained through the historic board system. So you can control, somebody earlier mentioned Boston would never do this. Cambridge actually already did it. And they found a way to preserve the historic character with infill, strictly regulated, so that the new units are sort of hidden. Looks amazing. We could do it here too. I think Willow and our historic neighborhoods could be leaders in Southwest infill architecture. And we would all benefit from more neighbors patronizing our local businesses, spending their money on things other than cars.
Thank you. Richard?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Howick. I use they, them pronouns. I grew up in Maryvale. I currently reside in the central city, just adjacent to the boundary that was discussed tonight. I recently graduated from ASU with a Master of Sustainability Solutions and a Master of Urban and Environmental Planning, where I learned about a lot of the issues we have in our cities. Housing is one of them. Affordable housing is a big issue here, right? We've got a bunch of luxury housing going up downtown, not really designed for families, older people. We need more housing. I am for this. This would allow more housing in our cities. And I want to echo the last speaker. They made a lot of good points. This bill might not say affordable, right? But this will create more housing, right? This is going to create more housing. Affordable housing comes down to the developers. Developers want to make as much profit as they can, most of them, right? So they're incentivized to not build affordable housing. We need to push the city to require some affordable housing, right? I'm all for affordable housing. We need more housing in general. We have a housing crisis. I understand that I'm the minority in this room right now, but you guys are all aging. You're more affluent. We need more housing for more people in our city. We need to diversify the people who live in our central business district and around it. Echoing many of the same points our last speaker made. It's going to boost economies, especially downtown. It's going to reduce traffic. So please reconsider your thoughts on this. This is going to be the future. Change is inevitable. Thank you.
Nicholas? Looks like Abraham. Romowitz? Roger Stupper?
My name is Roger Stoffer. I've been in Willow for 27 years. I heard a lot of people say that maybe with this, when it starts or when it's enacted, that Maybe it'll be a couple of years, maybe it'll be 10 years. I'm telling you it's here today. How many of you have gotten calls from private equity to sell your house? I've got one on my phone. So, that's my comment.
Joanne? Joanne Fresh?
And then Lillian Moody will be our last speaker.
I'll give it back, I swear. I'm a little vertically challenged here, so, and I'm very nervous talking in front of people, so if I stumble, please forgive me. My husband and I lived in Central Phoenix in one of the historic districts since 1977. We fell in love with this whole area, moving here from the Midwest, like many of you did. We fell in love with architecture. We didn't want a cookie cutter house like much of Phoenix was building. And we're now in a two-story. And we are so committed to historic preservation that, I mean, we accepted the city's offer, move downtown, help us revitalize downtown. We'll give you a tax break. We will protect you from infringement around your neighborhood. We realize that the neighborhoods are sliding downhill. We need to revitalize them. And like many young couples, we jumped in. My husband was making less than $20,000 a year. Then we managed to fix up our house, but keep the originality. And so, a couple more points. We're committed to saving the interiors, which I know is a personal decision on when you do that, but we have a 100-year-old bathroom right now. That's right, the 100-year-old toilet and sink and tub. And we have 75-year-old appliances, stoves, and refrigerators. Okay, on to another point. Like Dave Stanton mentioned, he's one of my neighbors. I think this is a classic example of overreach by a state. Who better to determine the rules of a city than the residents? I don't know if this is happening around the country, but this is kind of disturbing to me. Again, one more point. Another thing that I think attracted all of us to this area was the green belt. And if we overbuild, we're going to lose our beautiful trees and bushes. At the same time that Phoenix is trying to get us to buy more trees because we need more shade. So that's an obvious conflict. Anyway, thanks for hearing me out.
This will be our final speaker.
I first want to thank everybody that's here this evening for voicing your opinions, and I wholeheartedly agree with the vast majority. And I want to thank you for that because I live in the East Alvarado district, which is a very small historic district compared to all of these. You guys are carrying the load.
Could you stay close to the microphone, please? Thank you.
Yeah, carrying the load, and I appreciate that, but I'm going to support you all that I can. What I want to do is to ask you questions, Chris.
Sure.
Or Christopher, excuse me. First of all, we all signed the sign-in sheets, and we've given our email addresses to the city. I'd like to request that rather than just depending on our going on the web page, I don't know what the purpose of our email addresses are, but I would like to ask that we be given notification of upcoming meetings, meeting notes. There are a lot more people at the library than last time that couldn't get in, and the newspaper said there were only 200 people when there were far more people waiting on the outside that unfortunately had to go because they had nowhere to stand. I want to implore upon you to help the little street that I live on, that goes from 3rd Street to 7th Street, to help us, because we may fall to, let me back it up. If this is not repealed, it's going to be the first nail in the coffin to turn our street into something that nobody wants of the historic district. We live right where the restaurant Thai Recipe is. We live right on the other corner is a school, a charter school. And because of the traffic that's on our street, we are very, very vulnerable to change in a not so good way. Right now, we have semi-trucks frequently delivering food to the restaurant that I couldn't even get past that truck to get to my home, and I'm a homeowner.
Ms. Moody, if you could.
Whatever.
You're at time, so if you could finish your comment.
Okay, real quick. I have been told, as many in our district, that we cannot get in with a meeting with the city of Phoenix. We have been requesting at least parking permits, because every time there's a bird museum activity or a parade, all those people wanting to park to attend these things, we are the only historic district west of 7th Street that doesn't have parking restrictions. So everybody comes and parks in front of my house and all the other houses.
Ms. Moody, I don't want to interrupt you, and I just want to let you know we have time. We can certainly talk after this meeting to touch upon your comments.
Yes, because Michael Bellotti has been zero help to us. He just keeps putting hoops for us to go over to try to get some kind, so that we are not felt discriminated against or set apart from the other historic districts.
Thank you. And we're happy to talk to you after this. We just wanted to thank all of you for coming tonight, for hearing the presentation. I hope we've answered your questions. I know that some of the information, or maybe all of it, it's not information on here, but we want to make sure that your questions are answered. As we said, our website, that's the best way to, we're updating it. We will put this live stream on as well. We have the 2 virtual meetings, which the registration links are on the website. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to write us at PDD Middle Housing at Phoenix.gov. Thank you very much.
Thank you.